is Encore.
Cool.
The stories behind the songs.
Thank you.
Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
Look, if you had one shot or one opportunity to listen to every episode of Encore in one moment, would you download them? Or just let it slip? I'm Miles Galloway. There's vomit on my sweater already, and this is the story of Eminem's Lose Yourself. It's probably safe to say that by late 2002, Eminem was the most popular rapper in the world. With 3 full-length solo albums under his belt, Slim Shady had come quite a long way in the 4 years since taking the world by storm with the groundbreaking Slim Shady LP in '99. I remember begging my dad to buy that for me, and he did. I was 8. That's responsible parenting for you. Introducing the world to his devil-may-care madcap rhymes that ranged from insightful to absurd to downright offensive, sometimes all at once. There was no denying Marshall Mathers' talent on the mic, combining the sounds of the underground with a hurricane flow, lyrical wizardry, and pop culture irreverence. Eminem's popularity was bolstered by the frustrated angst of the emerging nu metal, horrorcore, and even pop-punk sounds of the era. Realistically, he didn't even sound like anything from those genres, but his aura was so strong that he became a sort of crossover artist without even needing to actually cross over. It was just cool to like Eminem.
What do I think I brought?
Yeah.
Something new, something fresh for shit that was, there's a steady trend in hip hop that was just going, and it seemed like hip hop was kind of slow for a minute, and maybe I brought something to the table that was a little bit different. Not just me being white, but just being a fresh voice in hip hop, a new voice. You know what I'm saying? And I truly believe that I brought something to the table that people can't front on. You know what I'm saying? If you no matter how much you want to front on it, I had to do that on purpose. I had to make music that you couldn't front on just to get people to listen. I had to work twice as hard. You know what I mean?
With the backing of music industry heavy hitters like Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, Eminem also had serious critical credibility. He'd won rap Grammys for the aforementioned Slim Shady LP and its lead single, My Name Is, in 2000. He followed that up with 3 more the following year for the likes of The Real Slim Shady, Forgot About Dre, and his sophomore album, The Marshall Mathers LP, and would eventually go on to win 2 more Grammys in 2003 for his '02 album, The Eminem Show, and its lead single, Without Me. And while we're on the topic of the successes of Slim Shady, the records show that by late 2002, Eminem's 3 solo LPs had gone no less than 18 times platinum in America alone. I won't even attempt to do the math for worldwide sales. There's just one thing Em hadn't done yet, and quite honestly, I can barely believe it myself. Eminem had never had a US Billboard Hot 100 #1 hit. That's right, even though he had come incredibly close with The Real Slim Shady, Without Me, and Cleaning Out My Closet, Eminem had yet to top the chart with any of his singles. One of the reasons for this may have been for as much love and accolades Eminem had, he also had quite a bit of heat on him for the controversial lyrical themes in his music. Tales of violence and rage, misogyny and homophobia were littered throughout Eminem's early work, charitably described as surreal, ultra-violent, trailer trash, post-gangster rap extremism. That is at least a breath of fresh air in a rap world that's despairingly low on new ideas, by the AV Club. Or as Eminem would explain himself.
I've always said that my music, for me, my music is like therapy for me. You know what I'm saying? It's a way for me to get stuff off my chest. I haven't always been pissed off. I haven't always been mad, you know. It just came to I feel like right now, it's just came to a boiling point for me. You know what I mean? I've been through so much stuff in my life that, I kind of reached a point where I was just fed up. And just got tired of it, and it shows on the record,
All right, but the masses kind of have to deal with what's going on in your mind. You know what I mean? And for some people to interpret that, it can be hard for some kids who don't necessarily understand what you've been through. You know what I mean?
I don't think nobody will ever understand what's completely on my mind, and I'm not asking people to. My album is kind of like inviting you into my world. If you want to come into it, you do. If you don't, you don't. And I feel like one of the reasons that it's selling so many records is probably because there's so many kids that can relate to what I've been through. You know, there's kids that can listen to the music and say, I've been there. You know, I've been through that. So I think they can relate to it, you know. There's a lot of poor people in the world. There's a lot of lower class people that have been through a lot of stuff, you know.
The alter ego of Slim Shady in and of itself was basically created to funnel those over-the-top lyrics in a way that would imply that these shocking lyrics weren't the true views of Marshall Mathers the man, and critics would defend Eminem on the basis of how artistically transgressive his work was. Eminem spoke on the criticism, including the homophobia, with much as Master T, and although it's admittedly more than a bit of a cop-out, especially when looking at it through a 2024 lens, you can sense that in early 2000, this was supposed to be sort of defensive, passive-aggressive mea culpa, maybe? I'll let you decide.
You know, and even in the song Criminal, I go on to explain, which I shouldn't even have to, but I still do. I go on to explain, come on, relax, guy, I like gay men. And then in the end of the song, I say half the shit I say, I just make it up to make you mad, so kiss my white naked ass. So it's like, don't you get it? I'm saying these things to get under your skin and you're letting me win. You know what I'm saying?
You think it's too easy for you?
It's easy for me right now. You know what I'm saying? If people would shut up, I wouldn't have as much to say.
But I mean, you've sold, X amount of records, and a lot of young people have your records. I mean,
and nobody's killed anybody listening to my CD yet. Nobody's went and gay bashed anybody yet. So when they do, you know what I'm saying, then holler at me. But until then, I think that, you know, like I said, the kids see it for what it's worth. They take it for what it's worth, you know.
What is it worth?
Nothing.
I don't know about that.
Fan appreciation for Eminem, of course, was in sharp contrast to how those in positions of power viewed him. Censors, parents, and even governments cared little for the hype of Slim Shady, zooming in on what they saw as excessive promotion of violent misogyny. In the year 2000, for example, the US Senate had a hearing that largely focused on Eminem and his music, with former Endowments of the Humanities Chair Lynn Cheney arguing that Eminem promoted violence in the most degrading kind against women. He talks about murdering and raping his mother, Cheney said. He talks about choking women slowly so he can hear their screams for a long time. He talks about using OJ's machete on women. And this is a man who is honored by the recording industry. Now, of course, because the Republican Party that Cheney was a part of was notably the party of quote-unquote free speech, Cheney claimed that she wasn't arguing against the lyrics themselves, but more for a tighter regulation around who was allowed to purchase music with violent or objectionable lyrics. Definitely not 8-year-old Miles. The parental advisory sticker system, which had already been in place on albums with explicit content for at least a decade at the time, was more of a voluntary system and not federally mandated in America. There was an argument for this being quite simply not enough, but ultimately there were no major changes made to the system. Lynn Cheney and her husband, Vice President Dick Cheney, did eventually find herself the subject of a lyric in Eminem's 2002 hit Without Me for Lynn's troubles, though. That infamous lyric, I know you got a job, Miss Cheney, but your husband's heart problem's complicating. A relatively mild jab, all things considered, poked fun at Vice President Cheney's 5 heart attacks brought on by his heavy cigarette use. Within 10 years, the former Veep would have a heart transplant, by the way. Here's Eminem speaking with Rick Campanelli on his combative nature.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
That was your goal.
I figured I would come back and stir a few things up, you know. Some people had some things to say about me, so I had some things to say about them.
Yeah.
And some people didn't have anything to say about me, and I still had some shit to say about them, so whatever. I speak my mind, man. People ask me opinions on people, and I say my opinion, you know. Well, I mean, whatever my opinion is worth, you know what I'm saying, it might not be worth anything, but, you know, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you, you know.
Also in 2000, up here in Canada, the Ontario Attorney General urged federal immigration officials to make sure that procedures were followed and to seriously reconsider letting Marshall Mathers in the country for his history of violent lyrics, as well as assault charges that had been filed against him in the States. The hot-button issue was brought to his attention after a self-appointed media violence watchdog named Valerie Smith filed a complaint with the Toronto police, stating the lyrics of the song Kim, where Eminem plays out the murder of his wife, constituted hate propaganda.
Nobody wants to curb free speech in the province of Ontario, but some of this rapper's songs go over the line. Where something falls outside of the marketplace of ideas and enters into the marketplace of causing harm to women, then we have laws on our books to deal with that kind of music. It's time for the Attorney General to investigate and, if necessary, prevent Eminem's concert this Thursday at Sky Dome. Why? Well, these lyrics suggest that violence against women is cool, maybe even funny. We have more than 50 years of research from the medical community that confirms that these kind of lyrics cause harm. So we need to prosecute the laws that are on the books. We also, in my view, need to go a step further. I think it's time for us to consider whether or not we should apply the same standards to the music industry as we apply to the film industry. If this song was played in a movie, the movie would be restricted. You couldn't go to the movie unless you're 18. Well, perhaps we should apply the same standard to the music industry as well. In particular, I don't think most parents would want these songs in the hands of their kids. But let's leave it up to them to decide. So, the music industry is already regulating itself. If it has a kind of warning that is on this CD, extremely offensive material, then you have to show ID to prove that you're 18 years old or older, which means that parents will get to decide whether or not their kids listen to this music. I know you're going to have a lot of questions for me, so why don't I introduce now Valerie Smith. She's a community activist. She brought a complaint to the Toronto Hate Crimes Unit to investigate and potentially prosecute Eminem.
Something that really disturbs and angers me is that a lot of the violence that appears in popular culture is directed at women and girls, and makes me angry because I'm part of the target group. Mather's appearance here follows a series of really horrendous domestic murders. As anybody who lived in the province over the summer knows, you could hardly pick up a newspaper without another screaming headline. It was his lyrics about killing his wife that brought him to my attention. His name comes up a lot in south of the border whenever they're doing the committee hearings on media violence. And so that's why he came to my attention. But then when I actually downloaded his lyrics and read through them, I realized that basically this guy is just a low-rent garden variety hate monger. So I make no distinction between him and a hate rock group that tries to sneak across the border. So I filed a complaint with Hate Crimes Unit, and even although gender is not included in the hate propaganda laws, I'm assuming they accepted it at that point because they told me they had passed it to the Attorney General for an opinion.
There are limits to pornography. There are limits to hate propaganda. There are limits to advocating violence against groups. I'm saying that we need to find out whether or not this crosses the limits, and where it does cross the limits, then these people need to be charged.
So Eminem's concert takes place Thursday. This is going to happen. Takes place Thursday. Crosses the border, goes to the U.S., goes wherever. What happens with you guys? Is the same thing with Madonna? Do you guys just shut it down and then it's done? Where you guys
yeah, just so I'm clear, I didn't call for Madonna's concert to be shut down. There's a very important distinction here, okay? That is obscenity, which in my view is not causing harm. If there was somebody who was engaging in pornography, we have lots of evidence to suggest that does cause harm. The Supreme Court of Canada says that pornography causes harm, and that's why it's not protected speech under Section 2B of the Charter. Similarly, if you come into Canada and you break the law, you're going to be charged. We're not going to stop the spreading of this outside of the province of Ontario. Legislators need to do whatever they can within their own jurisdiction instead of just pointing fingers at other jurisdictions, at Ottawa and everything else. This is what the Ontario legislature can do: enforce the laws that are on the books and ensure that the same standards are applied to the music industry as are applied to the film industry.
Despite the protests, Eminem was allowed to enter Canada for his show at the Sky Dome, and while he didn't perform Kim, he did perform the equally controversial Kill You, the song that sparked the ire of the aforementioned Miss Cheney. It must be said, though, after finishing that leg of the 2000 tour, for one reason or another, Slim Shady would not return to Canada for over a decade. Anyway, fast forwarding back to 2002, which simultaneously feels like the blink of an eye, and 50 years later, you can see why Eminem's relationship with pop culture and straight-up pop music was a complicated one. He was a huge, huge megastar, always on the brink of what I believe kids these days would call being cancelled. Sure, controversy served Eminem well on one hand, but it also made him public enemy number one.
Just hip hop, man. It's just, you know, I find myself catching more flack for my lyrical content than actually people saying, yo, actually, you know, commending me or whatever for what it takes to think of these lyrics and how I put this shit together and how I, you know what I'm saying, how I construct my lyrics and I make my own beats and I do, you know what I'm saying, I produce a lot of my stuff, you know, the shit that Dre don't produce, you know, and sometimes I'm even alongside Dre, you know, producing with him. So it's like, you know, I mean, give me some type of credit where credit is due. I never hear nothing positive. It's like everybody's always talking about lyrical content, lyrical content, lyrical content. Well, let's think, you know what I'm saying? I got songs like Stan that kind of justifies are saying don't take the lyrics seriously or this is what's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? If I wasn't completely consciously aware and just completely didn't give a fuck, I wouldn't make a song like Stan. You know what I'm saying? So
what was it Eminem needed to do to perhaps soften his image to Middle America? Oh, nothing much. Just lose himself. Production of 8 Mile, the semi-autobiographical film based on Eminem's rise from the Detroit underground, actually began in the year 2000, with shooting beginning in September 2001 in Highland Park, Michigan, which puts it somewhere between Marshall Mathers' LP and The Eminem Show in the official Slim Shady timeline. Eminem plays Jimmy Smith Jr., aka B-Rabbit, a white rapper from the suburbs connected to the black hip-hop scene of Detroit, connected by, you guessed it, 8 Mile Road. The film was a spin on a zero-to-hero tale, kind of like a hip-hop Rocky film, while telling the story of substance abuse, physical violence, and poverty in a pretty profound way. Pairing those themes with an authentic look at the world of the hip-hop and battle rap underground from the struggles of someone who doesn't have the luxury to simply follow their dreams, also substantiated the myth of Eminem, as Roger Ebert would say. Here is what Eminem had to say to Much back in '99.
I was an underground MC for years, you know. I was doing my thing. I was in a lot of rap contests, you know. In Detroit, I won a lot of contests, a lot of battles in Detroit. Took second place in the Scribble Jam in Cincinnati. Went to LA for the Rap Olympics. Was constantly battling, you know. That was my thing. That was the only way for me to get known. You know, that's the only way I knew how to get known. And then when I was in the Rap Olympics back in '97. I took second place in the Rap Olympics and gave my tape to some kids at Interscope. And Interscope gave the tape to Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine liked it and he gave it to Dre. He played it for Dre. And Dre liked it and Dre was looking for me, you know, and found me like 3 days later.
Eminem received praise for the role and the film was a commercial success. Maybe we'll do an episode on the film for Encore at the Movies or something in the future. Maybe if you get the popcorn. But the real success of 8 Mile was less the film itself and more about the soundtrack. Yes, before we dive into Lose Yourself itself, I think the 8 Mile soundtrack on the whole deserves its due. As you might expect, 8 Mile sold nearly 3.5 million copies, debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200 albums, and was given huge props by real hip-hop heads for the authenticity of the sound of the beats used in the film, which was set in 1995, even though sample clearance would have been quite expensive at the time to pull off. And if you've been listening since Encore Episode 1, you'll know that 8 Mile was also technically the successful mainstream debut of 50 Cent, with his song Wankster earning a featured spot on the soundtrack. Okay, technically our 50 Cent episode was episode 5, but who's counting? However, it was the opening track that was the crown jewel of the 8 Mile soundtrack, the film, and potentially M's entire career to date. Released in October 2002, Lose Yourself was written and produced by Eminem, his constant collaborator Jeff Bass, and Louis Resto. The iconic, urgent and momentous opening guitar riff was written by Bass years earlier and delivered to Shady to rap over, which, as legend has it, he did, twice actually. Once as a scratch track demo sometime around the year 2000, and the other during breaks while filming 8 Mile.
What you probably don't know is that musical riff, the heartbeat of Eminem's Lose Yourself, was written by this guy, Jeff Bass.
Yeah, the driving chunk guitar is what I believe motivated M to write those type of lyrics, and it was a great uplifting feel. Just 2 chords. Piece of history.
So where did those 2 chords come from?
Honestly, I don't know. I think the universe threw them in my soul that day.
According to studio engineer Stephen King, Eminem would record the song in only a single take per verse in a mobile studio on the set of the film. Eminem sat down for a Shade 45 Behind the Boards interview with Cypher Sounds to explain his hectic production schedule.
But like, so wait, so you're on the set of 8 Mile, and what, you're sitting on in your trailer or something, and you come up with a beat?
We had the workout trailer. We had the trailer where I could see my kids. We had the trailer where my niece and my daughter, we had that trailer. And then we had the music trailer.
There was a music trailer there.
Yeah, there was a music trailer.
You were recording while you were shooting a movie.
Yeah, and I was also writing while I was, like, I would memorize the scene first. The scene was memorized. Then I would sit down for a little while, like if they were taking a minute to set up lighting or whatever, and I would write more. And pretty much
write more songs, or write for the movie?
Write songs for the movie, and I was writing songs for the Eminem show.
Okay. But Lose Yourself, you were writing on the set.
Yeah, Lose Yourself. I felt like I had to make that song and the song 8 Mile Road. I had to make those songs while I was in the movie, because once I stepped out of that movie, then I would just be thinking back to, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't feel like I was in it.
Yeah. That's
so
crazy pressure, though, to write the soundtrack and act in the movie at the same time.
Oh yeah, in the soundtrack too. Yeah, we did the soundtrack at the same time. That's why I say it was this crazy combination of all these things that I was working on at once. I wasn't just working on one thing. And then, you know, I remember being up at 5:30 in the morning. Like 5:30 in the morning, I'm running on the treadmill, and then I'm in the weight trailer, and then I run over, eat some breakfast or whatever, a little bit, and then go to wardrobe or whatever, and then go into the scene with pen and pad and all that, and I would literally write and put the pen down. And when they said, all right, camera set, put the pen down, then action.
So you didn't have the script? You didn't get confused with writing rhymes and then you had to say part of the script at that point?
That would have been some funny shit. Going to the scene, one of the scenes. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already.
Cut.
Oh shit! I'm sorry, my bad. That's what I just wrote. What were my lines again?
Lyrically, the song was a masterstroke. Part breakdown of the plot of the film, part devil-may-care motivational speech. The urgency of the lyrics played perfectly with the layered pianos, aggressive drums, and thunderous guitars. Lose Yourself is really the kind of song that is just so aptly named, because even after 20 plus years and billions of spins and streams later, you can always find yourself lost in its magic. It's the type of song that can hype you up for that big sports game, a night out with your homies, psych you up for that job interview, or simply wash away the pain of a moment lost to time. As 411 Mania would point out at the time, Lose Yourself was also surprisingly tender, noting the song is as close to a ballad as Eminem will ever get. And honestly, I hear it. There's an underlying visceral theme in Lose Yourself that, well, you'd better lose yourself in whatever moment you found yourself in. You'd better give it your all no matter what obstacles stand in your way, and oh boy, there certainly are some obstacles. Don't forget, within 20 seconds of the song's opening, there's vomit on your sweater already. The whole track could be seen as a perverse line blurring between self-criticism and self-care, bookended by Shady's opening line, challenging the listener with the iconic one shot, one opportunity intro, and the soft reassurance at the end that you can do anything you put your mind to, man. But what of that original demo version, originally recorded as a scratch track years before 8 Mile? Unfortunately, Eminem revealed on his YouTube channel that his addictions had such a hold on him at the time, he has no real recollection of its conception, but it does exist.
There was another version of that song. I don't even remember recording. I don't remember where I was at when I recorded it. I don't remember any of the first verse. I don't remember it. So when he called me one day and told me about it, I was like, what? He's like, remember the scratch version of Lose Yourself? I'm like, no, I don't.
Eventually unearthed and released in 2014 for the Shady 15 compilation, thematically, the song has a strong resemblance to the 8 Mile version, but it's lyrically inferior to its big brother, truly lacking that aggressive monologue vibe in the verse and an unfocused chorus that goes, Lose yourself in this music, this moment. We own it. We won't never let it go. Go. You better move yourself because tomorrow's ass can wait. There is no time to sit there and procrastinate. You better lose yourself in this music, this moment. We own it. We won't never let it go. Go. You better move yourself because tomorrow's ass can wait. There's no time to sit there and procrastinate. You better. Okay, I'll stop. Lose Yourself was an immediate hit, becoming Eminem's first Hot 100 #1 single on November 9th, 2002, and remaining at the top for a resounding 12 weeks. It even kept Missy Elliott's super hit Work It at number 2 for 10 of those weeks, which we discussed a few weeks back in a retrospective on that masterpiece. But if you're old enough to remember, that's not all Lose Yourself achieved. The song was the dictionary definition of a crossover hit, charting impressively not only on the pop, hot R&B, hip-hop and rap songs chart, but also peaked at number 14 on the modern rock tracks chart, which meant that unless you were solely listening to country music at the time, you pretty much could hear Lose Yourself on any radio station at any time. And I've got to admit, it's pretty much still the case today. Lose Yourself was nominated for 5 Grammy Awards at the 2004 ceremony, including in the prestigious Record and Song of the Year categories, but would only win the 2 genre awards for Best Male Rap Solo Performance and Best Rap Song. I'm sure Eminem wasn't bothered, though. He'd already won a much more elusive prize just under a year earlier when Lose Yourself won an Academy Award for Best Original Song, the first ever rap song to win the award. He even beat out U2 for the prize, which, if you're a long-time Encore listener, you know is not an easy thing to do. I'm on to you, Bono. Eminem would not be present at the Oscars, though, a rarity in Oscars history. Here he is again with Behind the Boards, explaining why.
I just felt like I had no chance of winning because, you know, when I heard I was nominated, like, I thought that was for actors. Like,
right.
You know, I wasn't sure what was what, like, exactly what a Grammy meant. You know, what certain awards meant.
Right.
I wasn't sure what they meant. So, you know, even the MTV awards, all that stuff, like, I just didn't know what awards meant. But this particular award, I didn't go to the award show. I just felt like I had a snowball's chance in hell of
especially
that's a good expression. I just made that up.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice.
Snowball's chance in hell, yeah.
Because the Oscars are obviously for mostly for movies and acting.
Yeah.
And for you to have a song on there, it's like, you probably like, whatever.
Yeah, I think I got it confused when they said Oscar, they were talking about the song, but I was like, yeah, but isn't there other movies that got like rock songs in them and stuff like that? Like, you know, at that point in my life, I always felt like rap never got its fair shake on anything. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I didn't go to the first Grammys that I was invited to because, you know, I pretty much protested it and I didn't understand why there was a rap category.
Eventually, though, Rip Van Eminem would awaken from his slumber some 17 years later, performing a surprise rendition of Lose Yourself at the 2020 Oscars ceremony just before the pandemic hit, finally getting his Oscars moment. The performance was an actual shock to almost everyone, with a complete lockdown of the venue around the logistics on M's arrival, with a rumoured option on Eminem's side that if any info of his performance was leaked, he had the option to cancel. M told Variety magazine, "I kind of figured maybe since I didn't get a chance to do it at the time, maybe it would be cool. Back then, I never even thought that I had the chance to win, and we just performed Lose Yourself on the Grammys with the Roots a couple weeks before the Oscars, so we didn't think it was a good idea. I don't even think I understood back then that you could get an Oscar for a song, and I remember being kind of confused about why I was even up for one. Louis Resto, my keyboard player who produces records with me, went up and accepted it. And I know people were probably like, who the F is this guy? So he called me, and I remember the phone kept ringing, and I'm like, mother, I'm trying to sleep. But I answered, and he's like, hey man, you won. I did? Shit, cool. But that was a different time, and I was in a different place in my life. Funnily enough, Eminem would bookend pandemic lockdowns with Lose Yourself, also performing the track at the first full attendance allowed Super Bowl halftime show in 2022. Eminem, Snoop, Jay-Z, Kendrick, Mary J. Blige, and 50 Cent, among others involved, would win an Emmy for that performance, by the way, which moves Marshall Mathers one step closer to the rarefied EGOT status, with only a Tony Award eluding him. Eminem the musical, anyone? Even with multiple hiatuses and reinventions, Eminem's career would never really slow down post Lose Yourself. The ups and downs he would experience both personally and professionally are stories for future episodes of Encore, as the one they call Slim Shady is truly a remarkable figure in the pantheon of entertainment. Now considered by critics and fans alike as Eminem's signature song, only future hits Love the Way You Lie and Not Afraid have outsold the track. The cultural impact of Lose Yourself is truly unmatched, inspiring covers from the likes of MGK to Kelly Clarkson, a parody from Weird Al, blessed personally by Slim Shady himself, and even a cheeky cover from the world's #1 star, Taylor Swift, although don't expect to hear it on the Eras Tour. But perhaps most importantly, in 2021, Eminem and Union Joints opened up a Lose Yourself-inspired restaurant in Detroit, Michigan. What's it called? Mom Spaghetti, of course.
Get your sweaters ready, Detroit. Mom Spaghetti is coming to 2131 Woodward Avenue. Want some road pasta after the game?
Got that.
Meatballs?
You know we got that.
What about the Sketty sandwich? Mom's got that too. Get ready to get some Mom Spaghetti, Detroit. Opening in the alley next to Union Assembly this September. 313-888-8388. Mom Spaghetti. It's all ready. Ready.
I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Eminem's Lose Yourself.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these.